What's up, Zox fam? Now, we have a huge unit to talk about in Tribe 9, and not just because of how he looks, but because of what he actually brings to the table. Eiji is by far one of the most insane support characters in the game, period. And I want to talk to as to why. And there's a lot of things I feel like some people don't actually realize that this character brings to the table that actually would be something that you want to look for in the future, right? So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Now, of course, I got to show and flex my skin I just got for him because he looks kind of cool. I ain't gonna lie. He does look kind of cool. But we got the homie Eiji Todoroki. This is definitely a character that I will say is going to give you immense value, especially when you are trying to deal damage on your account. Now, obviously, we're going to be going over the character, and I want to kind of show you how I play him sometimes. Just kind of all varies on what you're doing or what your preferences are. But even then, understanding what this character is doing on AI is also going to be really important as well. So let's start off with the skills here and really just the basic info. So the attack ability is fairly low for this character. Break ability is fairly low. The support ability is extremely high, one of the highest in the game. And then the operating difficulty is low because it's not a hard character to actually manual if you choose to do so. Now, the thing that's really important to note with this character is that when he is in one of his abilities, which I think is specifically a spotlight, he is truly in the spotlight. He is over there dancing. He's doing everything you could think of, from a TikTok dance to the Dougie to the stanky leg. He's doing everything other than fighting, right? But that is okay because the value that he's giving the rest of the party is actually extremely high. And we're going to get into that, right? So getting into the very first skill here, we have the Billionaire Law, which is basically going to consist of the primary attack, where he is able to perform 3 stages of melee attack. Secondary attack is going to be him shooting a huge, piercing, customized XP plasma ball towards the target. And then you have the counter attack. So when you perform a dodge counter, when executing the counter attack successfully, limit enemy actions by using attacks that will make the enemies lose their balance more easily, right? Now, as far as some of the values that you're getting here, you'll see it's 50 times 5 on the first, 50%, times 2 on the second hit. The third stage is going to be a 450% multiplier with some break damage applied to that. And then you can kind of see the break values are as such: 50, 20, and then 60 on the third hit. The secondary attack is going to have a 450% multiplier as well, with a 200 break value that consumes 500 stamina, right? Now, the other thing is here as well is that we have a counterattack that hits 3 times with 67% action damage. And a successful counterattack is also going to eat up a 500 break value. And then the stamina consumption on this is 625, right? Now, when we're looking at the next skill here, we have the strategy skill, or the spotlight ability. Now, the thing about this ability is that it's going to be allowing him to perform an AoE attack while rolling out a red carpet. Deploy a spotlight that illuminates the area around oneself for a certain period of time and grants all enemies attention. Now, attention is basically going to be making it to where enemies will prioritize attacking the character who granted them the effect. So yes, this is a forced taunt. There are a good amount of characters that have this ability, and so that kind of already is telling you as a specific role that this character is going to be playing, or potential role this character is going to be playing. It's also going to be your front tank, or your character that's able to aggro, right? Now, with that, this is where you start to really see how Eiji can affect the entire party. Grant party members within the spotlight an effect that will increase crit rate by 10%. Now, a lot of players might say, well, you got to stand in a specific spot. But the thing is that this is a ability that can be constantly recast. No different than what Simba can do. No different than what Miyu could do. These abilities are constantly recasted and can be moved. And the other cool thing is that this ability will not go away unless no one's doing damage. Like, if no one's doing anything, then the ability won't stay. But if people are actually doing damage in that specific vicinity, then the ability will stay up and will continue to buff them. Now, there's more that actually comes with this. So when party members within Spotlight deal damage to the enemy, grant oneself 1 stack of Euphoria. Now, Euphoria, basically, when executing Money as Power, decrease tension consumed based on the number of Euphoria stacks. And after executing Money as Power, all stacks will be removed. right? Now, the big thing with this is that this is going to be what we call a tension counter. And this is going to be allowing you to be able to filter the value or the tension cost from what your tension cards might be eating up. He's able to help reduce that as a playable character versus you using another tension card to counteract that value, right? So it's kind of insane. Now, the other thing is when one self moves away from the spotlight will be removed after a certain period of time. So when he's in the spotlight, he needs to stay in the spotlight. And that is why you give him certain stat values that we're going to talk about, right? Now, if we go to the status details here, this is a strategy skill with an action damage of 25%. Stamina consumption is 125. But the main thing that you're getting here is that 10% additional crit rate. Now, the other thing is too, is that you're going to be using this crit rate in conjunction with cards like Full Party, or with the strike zone, which is going to be doubling that effect. What you're talking about is going to give you potentially somewhere around 30 something percent. So that on top of all of that, you already have about 40% crit rate just from simply having Eiji and those two cards in play, right? That's insane. Now, on top of that, Euphoria, basically tension consumption decrease when executing an ultimate skill, and it's 2.5 per stack. Okay. Now keep in mind that you're basically able to get this up to, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 40 stacks, right? So that on 40 stacks is kind of insane because that actually gives you quite a bit of tension to work with. So we do the math real quick because, gotta bust out the handy dandy calculator. If we do that times 40, that's 100 tension. So that's basically a tension bar at max stacks. So he could basically filter that. And that's I'm not gonna lie, that's extremely insane value when you're talking about counteracting tension. Now, the thing is that you also have Money is Power, which is the ultimate skill. So scatter Kane upwards and grant party members Trillionaire Law for a certain period of time. Increase the duration of Trillionaire Law based on the number or the stacks of Euphoria when executed. Now, what does Trillionaire Law do? It increases the primary attack damage multiplier and the secondary attack damage multiplier. And so you're not only getting crit rate increase, but you're getting a multiplier increase for both secondary and primary attack. Now, the primary attack damage multiplier goes up by 60% and the secondary goes up by 60%. And then the Trillionaire Law's duration is a 5 second plus a 0.5 second increase per stack. So it normally will last 5 seconds, but you get an additional 0.5 seconds per stack. So the more Euphoria stacks you have, the longer Trillionaire Law will last. And so that's something that also can be extremely valuable. The other thing is that the tension gauge maximum consumption is 200, but keep in mind that if this is at max stacks, he could potentially be having this cost anyway. Now, the idea of you ulting with him is just going to vary based off of your comp. I mean, there are a lot more teams that I would say that people are using that are more fixated on a damage dealer doing the ult because he does require a phase 2 in order for him to be able to execute this. So at most you would need EX or to be achieving EX in order to be able to comfortably pop this and then maybe still get off a ult from one of your phase 1 characters unless you can just break that fast, but most probably aren't. So this is something that you have to kind of consider is that when you're looking at like the phase that it requires, the cost or consumption, and then the ability to be able to build up those set stacks. Now, the other thing is, again, really important to note that you're able to build up Euphoria as long as you're doing damage. So if you go back to Spotlight, so when party members within Spotlight deal damage, you grant oneself 1 stack of Euphoria. So as long as they're dealing damage, you'll be able to get that Spotlight built up. But if you're having trouble or not getting enough hits out, then you're not going to have enough Euphoria for that to really make sense, right? Now, the other thing that you have here is the Golden Cross, which is just a simple chain skill. It can basically be inflicting break on the enemy, and you basically perform follow-up attacks towards the target. Now, the other thing is that what this does is it gives you a tension gauge recharge of 50 with an action damage of 1200. What's really important too, though, to note is that depending on what stat values you are fixated on, this would be a good ability to chain first because, and really it's not really so much the ability, but it's just chaining him first because he then could say, amp the next ability, considering if you're using him as like, or with support on him, right? For XB though, he does have an increasing passing speed, and allies are more likely to win a bout on base. So he does help out your entire party. He additionally will be able to gain the showdown factor, and for the next 3 at bats, the opponent will not be able to use the breakthrough factor, which is also a huge counter to that ability, which can suck when it's being used against you, especially. So really nice character for XB as well. Now I want to talk about my rank up investment here. Rank up investment, I primarily have shifted everything into the passive skill expansion 2, when basically granting oneself euphoria, recharge, allies, tension, gauge. That's all I really care about with this character, personally. Now there are other things that you could be going for, which for example is increasing the effect of Trillionaire Law, which again is going to be affecting directly the primary attack damage multiplier and secondary attack damage multiplier. This is going to be based on the euphoria stacks. You could fixate and aim for that, but that's entirely up to you, to be honest. Whether you're using them for that value versus say trying to reduce the tension cards, it's kind of how you want to use them at that point, but it is an option. Now I would definitely say if you're not investing in the passes, which you should, definitely going for enhancing base support point is going to be really good for coordination for him, simply because when you go to chain, if you are chaining enough, you basically can help scale the next support action damage coming in. Also, survival instincts is going to be pretty huge as well. This is another one that you can invest in, increasing maximum HP, defense point, and stamina. And mainly the HP and defense point is going to be the big thing, because it's going to allow you to be able to have this character more on its own, tanking, taking damage. But I definitely would say that's not all this character will require if you're really looking for just as good of sustain or somewhat competent sustain comparatively to Roku. If that's what you're looking for, there's a couple of different other values you need, right? So let's talk about that. So when we get into the Pattymon, the Pattymon I'm actually running, obviously it's all over the place. They're broken. Still trying to fixate and get the perfect gear in quotations. But it's a work in progress, right? So we got defense 2, we got support 4, and shield damage reduction 3. We're not using that right now. So really it's the defense 2 with the support 4, which is increasing support point by 30. We also have on this piece maximum HP 2. So HP obviously you can see is a trend here. Defense is a trend here. The crit damage multiplier 4, it's there. Support 2 plus, obviously something we're looking for. So defense, HP, support, and then there's another ability or value that I would say is actually really helpful to characters like Eiji, which is going to be damage cut. So if you're able to get damage cut on him, which is decreasing damage taken by 5%, then that also can be really huge to keeping this character alive. The other value or set effects that I'm going for here, I would say 2 I would recommend off the top of my head would be either Trickster, or if you're looking for something that's going to give you a little bit more sustain, then you want to go with the which one is this one? It is, I guess, Defender's okay, but you can make up that HP from anywhere, specifically Fortress. So this decreases damage taken by 8%. And if you have some damage cut pluses or pluses that you're talking about a good amount of damage cut or reduction that you're getting. So that actually can be quite helpful to this type of character, right? Now with that, okay, one last thing I want to talk about before we go into a combat scenario so you guys can kind of see what's happening, is the dupes, okay? I currently have 3 in my Eiji, but I will say, and this is a reason why this character was not on rate up, because there's a lot more value you can actually get when you dupe this character. So in the first dupe, what you basically get is when Spotlight is deployed, the duration of Spotlight remains after oneself leaves the Spotlight, and it will last 1 second longer. So it just gives you a little bit more time for somebody to come in, do damage, and not instantly going away, right? So it just gives you that extra second. And a second in like a really fast action RPG can make a difference, and you upkeeping or keeping up a buff. So it's not that crazy, but it is nice to have. The other thing with the Fashionable Me, 2 potential gems. That obviously helps with your rank up allocation. Clever Me, so when executing a secondary attack, increases own secondary attack damage multiplier by 50% for 5 seconds. This is if you want him to be some sort of contributor to damage. Do I think this one really matters nearly as much? Not necessarily, not really for the main things that we're aiming for. It's just there, I guess, especially on AI. It's like, I guess he can technically do that, but is his AI going to do it? Probably not, right? Now, the other one for heroic me is 3 potential gems. And then the very last one is one that actually makes this character kind of insane. It's that got everything me. Now, when money as power is executed, grant party members an effect that will increase crit rate by an additional. This is not the same 10% that you're getting from Spotlight. This is coming from money as power now. You will get an effect that will increase crit rate by an additional 10% for 5 seconds. So what this means is that basically, if you decide, if we go back real quick, if you decide to actually ult with this character, you then can grant yourself an additional 10% crit rate. Is that worth? Maybe later down the line when you are able to maximize your values in terms of cutting down tension costs, considering that we are having this update coming where we're going to be able to see lower tension costs anyway, that's going to be really huge. I feel like once they actually figure out what the values are going to be for us, because then he'll be able to actually achieve getting his ult up, us getting to EX. And then even if you're not using EX, you can proc whatever ability you have. And then you can go into, say, still using or popping a phase 1 ult with like a Miyu or with an Inoki, and they can still take advantage of that additional 10% on top of the 10% that he's already given from Spotlight. So it's a lot of different things that you can like think of, but this off rip is already future proof in this character, because there's nobody else in the game that can literally do this specific thing with stat filling nearly as much for values that I would argue most players are typically going to want, right? So again, let's go ahead and let's shift into some combat. Okay, guys, so we're jumping right in, obviously showing you guys some of the things that you want to be aware of with Eiji if you do decide to play him, and some of the things he's going to do on AI. Now, let's see here. So that's obviously his dodge right there. We've got a couple of instances where we might do this. But we're basically not going to take on every hit just because I don't have like my MC on full send heal and I completely forgot about it, but it's okay. All right, so now we're gonna dodge that, and then we're going to our Spotlight. Now in the Spotlight, right, what's really important to note, you can see that we have that crit rate coming in. Once we get to the point of getting into our next phases, we're going to see our defense go up. We're going to see a lot of other things. Some of my other tension cards are going to kick in. But then when we're able to ult with him, we'll then be able to actually get off these primary attack and secondary attack damage multiplier. And I'll be able to show you guys that. But you'll see how like it just kind of stacks overall. But normally when he's in this form, or in this Spotlight, he just stands there, right? Like he just stands there, he builds up like bar, and that's that, right? Like the euphoria, that's basically what he's doing. Now right here, we're not gonna move because we're already in the direction, right? So boom, he eats that. We go back into our Spotlight. And we basically just try to now work on break. Now, normally, if you were just using, like, say, AI Eiji, he would just keep doing his Spotlight. You really wouldn't have to worry too much about it. But because I'm manualing him, I do have to force the break. The other thing is, too, you definitely want to chain that a little better. He should probably be going first in the chain. And we're going to actually do some dodging here. Because I do have the revive, but we don't want to be in this fight that long. All right, so here we go. We're just going to stand here, and you guys can kind of see him. I'll let him take a couple of hits so you guys can see. Boom. He took a hit there. Boom. He doesn't get knocked out, right? So the Spotlight, granted, this is the reason why you want to have him with like things like damage cut and stuff like that. Because ultimately he can eat those hits, right? And it feels a lot worse earlier in the game just because you don't have as nearly as much stat value or even things like damage cut to really work with. But he can technically do it. There we go. Like, look at that. Like, and it's kind of satisfying to watch him work, you know, because it's such a weird, lazy play style, but it still does stuff. All right, let's see. I'm going to try to force the break here. All right, we're almost there. There we go. So we're going to throw him in there, give MC a little boost. Boom. All right, so now what we're gonna do, so again, just to show you my stats are now up. We have the ultimate damage multiplier from one of my other tension cards, but we got a crit rate at 32%, 731 defense. That's coming from the full party card. So this obviously is helping him be more tanky. This is why I always recommend that card anyway. But now we're actually going to pop his ult so you guys can see that firsthand, okay? So we're gonna go for the ult here. Boom. Okay, right? So he popped the ult. Now you'll see we have the multipliers for both primary attack damage and secondary attack damage multiplier. And that's going to last for X amount of time. Now, the cool thing is too, is that from here, what we're able to do, because we have enough built up for us to be able to like finish ulting, keep in mind, the other thing that's really important as well is that he's canceling out the usage of his own ult. With his own tension reduction that happens from his ult. It's kind of an interesting gimmick, so it kind of balances it out. We did have full stacks. The way that you're able to tell that you have full stacks, there's a green bar on the side, so you'll be able to see that bar build all the way up. That's when you know you have full stacks of Euphoria, right? And so with that, okay, now we should be able to just ult with one of our allies. Preferably, it's obviously going to be Miyu here. It should be able to just end the fight here. Let's see what the enemy is doing, though. I think he went underwater. Okay, so we'll wait, because otherwise it's just going to whiff the whole thing. Oh, we got hit. Never mind. All right, there we go. So, yeah, this is like a weird character for even me. Again, though, I still wanted to kind of give you guys as best of a picture just to kind of show you how he plays. Let's go for... Ooh, I didn't mean to do MC. I really meant to do Miyu, but it's all right. It's all right. We got to revive. This is why we bring precautionary things, right? But all in all, really, really simple character. There's not really much else to him, other than now we got to just finish this fight here. There we go. And he can get out of dodge pretty easily. He's really agile too, which is really interesting for his character. All right, there we go. We'll let them build up stacks again. So yeah, they're just wearing them down. We're gonna back off here. And we'll go for boom. Now, obviously, this could be done much, much faster, okay? This is not a speed clear. This is really with the intent of showing you how this character works, how you can get him to work. All right, let's see. We'll move so I can see this. Okay. Ooh, look at that. See, y'all didn't even know. Y'all didn't even know I was going to dodge, you know? Yeah, but he's really fun to play, though. Definitely a weird character, but still pretty fun to play. Let's see. And dodge that. We got that last. Now we're chaining him right this time. Boom. Boom. Okay. And then Miyu just finished that. Thank you. That's what we should have did before, and this fight would have been over. But we kind of goofed. All right, so there we go, right? So very, very simple, very straightforward. Characters not that crazy. All right, so there we go. Now, with that, okay, just some of the cards that I would recommend. Obviously, Unity, I think, is a big one. Defense Point is still going to be something that is applicable to this character. I mean, not Unity, sorry, Full Party. And then, of course, Strike Zone to be able to give you that amplification to Unity. He does buff both secondary and primary attack. So you are getting that double value there. Then on top of that, I would definitely say that another card, and this is like based off of like if he's on AI, that actually can help with the aggro, because the way that the aggro works with attention right now is that attention will essentially phase off at some point, and you have to use a very specific move in order for you to be able to reproc it. It doesn't proc nearly as often as like Roku. Roku's able to force aggro a lot more often than some other characters. So then this is where like abilities like, for example, if we go here, you have like things like the light tempo. This is something I actually tested out for attack speed. Let me actually move myself so you guys can see it though. But yeah, so this is a card that I use for the attack speed. You basically are going to have that attack speed increase to 5 seconds, but if the target is granted attention, the effect will be replaced with Hegemony. And what Hegemony is actually doing here is actually making it to where the effect cannot be overwritten and has a higher priority over attention. So when an enemy is under Hegemony, it attacks the character target, damage is reduced by 5%. And so this is something that also can kind of help you as well, as what with basically just that damage reduction and taking on that aggro a little bit more efficiently. Considering that is part of the job. So yeah, you can build in damage cut. You have things like this that can give you damage reduction as well. Another one that also works really well, and I know it's somewhere down here, is actually one of the phase 2 cards. This is the increase for primary and secondary attack damage multiplier for 10 seconds. To add on top of it, it's the Iron Mo Punch. And this also will have the tension consumption of 3. And this is, of course, based off of when the strategy skill hits, but it does give you that hegemony instead of attention. And then you also have the surprise attack. I call it the Toad card. So when a secondary attack hits, it increases crit rate by X amount. And then you also have the attention and that being replaced by hegemony as well. So if it's more emphasized on him, these are some of the cards I would play. But typically, I would say that more than likely, your cards are still going to be fixated or focused on your damage dealers. So for example, things that can increase your ult, or that's going to increase, your attack, primary attack, secondary attack. Those cards are definitely going to be the ones that you're kind of aim for more so. I feel like defensive cards are nice in the beginning, but later on it's all about offense, trying to get through the fight faster. So I guess it just really all depends on what and where you're at in the game. But ultimately, those would be some of my suggestions outside of some of the other ones that I mentioned in the previous video. But yeah, guys, that's basically going to be that with this one. I hope that this was as entertaining and fun for you guys as it was for me. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys join the Discord. We're almost at 1,000 people in the Discord, which is cool. And we're going to be having our anime night coming up this Friday. And we're going to be starting out with the first 6 episodes of Tribe 9. So make sure you guys are there. Everybody, stay blessed. Hope to see you guys there. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.